All right, looks like we're at time, so let's go ahead and get started. My name is Janae, and I'm with NEC, the Consultants Training Institute. Before we get started with today's around the valuation round, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. First, to obtain CB credit, you must answer all the poll questions that pop up on your screen during today's webcast. If you have an ABW subscription, you'll see the CP certificates in your NEC.com portal within 7 to 10 business days afterwards. If you have any questions in today's webcast, please use the Q&A feature as this will be directed to the presenters. If you have any questions about NECV or any technical questions, please feel free to reach out to me through the chat and I'll be happy to assist you. With Around the Valuation World, we try to go over any hot topics in the industry, any current events, stuff like that. Within the 2 hours, we don't have enough time to cover all the information. And so we do have links to other resources where you can stay abreast of all the upcoming changes and current events in the industry. And with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Alina and Val, who will get us started with the webcast today.
Thank you, Shanda, and welcome everyone to our August show. We are just starting the school season, so I hope all of your kids are already back. But today we are going to have our awesome lineup. Today we are going to have Janae Castell. She's doing the industry headlines. We also have Ed. He's going to be interviewing Arli, and they are going to be talking about pro bono finance support for marginalized entrepreneurs. She's been with us before. We also have Cheryl Hyder, one of our correspondents, and she's going to be interviewing Dr. Ramamoorti and Daven Morrison. They are going to be talking about beliefs, behaviors, and fraud evaluation. Also, we have our monthly interview with our judges. This month, our correspondent, Zipp, is going to be interviewing them, and they are going to be talking about how valuation and forensic experts can avoid Rule 702, the bird exclusions. And this month, we have our standard and ethic show or segment, and it's going to be Justin Nielsen presenting. He's one of our the member of our standing board. And at the end, we're going to have James. He's going to be interviewing Michael Hill, and they're going to be talking about protect your business, E&O insurance. So with this, I'm going to let Janae Castell. She's going to be doing our industry headlines, and is the first month. She's been with us for a long time, right, as our correspondent, but it's the first month that she's going to be just with industry headlines. So as of today, she's starting every month with us doing this since Mr. Mike Gregory retired last month. So, Janae, you can take it from here.
Great. Thank you, Alina. Should you have me? Yep, you'll have to get used to me. Sorry. We will all miss Mike, but I told him I will try to do him the honor of doing a good job as he did in presenting this every month. So this month, we're going to talk about another tax court case allowing tax affecting in Pierce v. Commissioner, another article discussing Copyright Office clarifying AI-created content, tariffs and uncertainty, which was in the Quick Read Buzz, global issues from the IVSC paper on valuation risk, key takeaways, which was presented in the BV Wire. Another BV Wire article on how to respond to clients who ask for an AI discount. Finally, our last article is from the Journal of Forensic and Investigative Accounting, and is titled Wells Fargo Bank: When Sales Incentives and Management Pressures Lead to Widespread Fraud. Okay, so the objectives or the takeaways in this session this morning are to have you be able to identify a recent case addressing the appropriateness of tax affecting PTEs, discuss the necessity of human touch for copyright protection, describe the impact of tariffs on valuation drivers, describe valuation risk, and differentiate it from value uncertainty. Recognize how AI may impact the perceived value of your services, and also discuss the impact of unethical corporate incentives and pressures on the incidence of fraud. Okay, so we'll jump right into it with Pierce v. Commissioner. Samuel Nichols wrote an article discussing this tax court case, and if you're interested in these issues, I would recommend going and giving it a read. So in this case, another recent tax court case, the tax court ruled that tax affecting for pass-through entities is permissible However, the court's decision is not intended to be binding precedent, and the court explicitly stated its inclination to continue deciding each case based on its specific facts and circumstances. In this case, the court agreed with the inclusion of projected income taxes in a DCF, which they said was appropriate, especially when valuation data used for an S corporation is largely based on C corporation data, which pays entity level taxes. Okay, so the opinion also discussed some other issues outside of tax affecting. The court accepted forecasts prepared independently by one of the experts, which successfully incorporated adverse material events impacting the company's future operation and sales. That was the estate's expert or the taxpayer's expert. In contrast, the IRS's expert, their forecasts were rejected for lacking sufficient review and analysis of underlying data and assumptions, and for failing to address these significant negative events. The court rejected a 5% CSRP for lack of discussion of its determination in the absence of a probability assessment for each cited risk factor. The method of estimating working capital was also discussed, as well as what might be called foreseeable post-transaction events. So interesting case, interesting write-up, might be a good read. The U.S. Copyright Office recently clarified the protection for AI-created content. It ruled that a human hand playing a meaningful role in shaping the final result is a requisite for copyright protection. Simply inputting a prompt into ChatGPT or a similar tool will not grant the user any copyright protection. Protection may apply to a work if a human substantially modifies, arranges, or transforms the material in a meaningful and creative way. Some interesting complexities include AI trained on copyrighted works. Are they infringing by default? It's an interesting article. Colin also has a series on the quick read that is demoing some of the AI platforms, which may be helpful if you're unsure what some of these apps and options look like and what they can do. Or maybe if you just want to know what's out there or what someone else might be using AI for, or if they've used AI to create something. So I just thought that was an interesting series that Colin has started doing on the quick read, also involving AI. Okay, so tariffs and broader economic uncertainty exert pressure on asset valuations in multiple ways, including margin compression, shifts in valuation multiples, and reduced forecasting confidence. This is an article by Faisal Lakhani regarding tariffs and uncertainty. While these effects are widespread, their severity depends heavily on each company's industry, supply chain structure, pricing power, and geographic exposure. For example, the author states that industrials and manufacturing companies are often more vulnerable to these kinds of issues and uncertainties, while consumer-facing sectors may be more resistant to price increases for tariffs. In an environment of impending significant tariffs and economic uncertainty, valuation professionals must lean on flexible modeling, scenario analyses, qualitative judgment, and close monitoring of policy trends to navigate increasingly complex and volatile valuation landscape. Okay, so another article, this is interesting regarding some terms that you may not be familiar with, and I want you to be aware of what's out there and what's being discussed. The IVSC recently released a paper discussing valuation risk, and it defined valuation risk as the possibility that a valuation's outcome is not suitable for its intended use. It distinguishes it from value uncertainty, which is inherent in value estimation and is outcomes related. They said that that would be covered in a second paper, the value uncertainty. So it sounds very nuanced and almost esoteric, or almost like we're mincing words. The concepts could be important and significant. So the paper gave sources of valuation risk as things like calculation errors, inconsistent methods, weak assumptions, flawed professional judgment, issues that may arise even for skilled valuers, especially when you've got complex assets or valuations of businesses or assets that you're unfamiliar with. So what to do about valuation risk? Managing this includes quality control, having a rigorous, transparent, and documented process with internal reviews, experienced personnel, and model validation, using careful, substantiated professional judgment, and clearly communicating the scope, purpose, and assumptions to ensure the correct use of results. The IVSC acknowledges that there are many different interpretations of valuation risk and of the potential impact on future standards. So they invite stakeholders to comment on whether further clarification or refinement of the concept is needed. Okay. Now, we all had to know this was coming, right? Word of increasing efficiency at professional service firms is reaching the ears of clients. So there was an article about how to respond to clients who ask for an AI discount. Bloomberg recently reported that PwC has cut prices for some services because of AI efficiencies. According to speakers at the recent ASA Fair Value Conference, AI can enhance efficiency by automating certain routine tasks, but the core value of your services lies in the professional judgment, analysis, and insights that only experienced professionals can provide. AI does not replace the need for oversight and validation, especially in complex valuation scenarios. The investment in AI tools to ensure security and compliance is also an increased cost, and it is valuable as it enhances the quality and reliability of the service provided. So perhaps consider shifting to a value-based model for your pricing rather than hourly billing. Clients are often willing to pay for an enhanced level of service, which AI can help facilitate. Okay, our final article involved the 2003 scandal, or the scandal with Wells Fargo Bank that traces its roots all the way back to 2003. So Carrie Tolstead, head of community banking under CEO John Stumpf, initiated an aggressive sales incentive program requiring employees to sell 8 products per customer, a significant increase from 3 products in 2000. Executive compensation was heavily tied to a measure of return on equity, incentivizing the push for new accounts. This intense pressure created an environment where employees were encouraged to meet daily goals however they could, with failure leading to demotion or termination. From 2011 to 2016, approximately 8,500 employees were terminated for sales performance issues, leading to widespread fraudulent activities, including opening unauthorized checking and savings account, ordering unsolicited credit and debit cards, transferring customer funds without consent, and creating fake email addresses for applications. Despite having multiple oversight agencies, including an ethics line for reporting concerns and ethics codes with an open door policy, these tools failed to prevent the fraud. Whistleblowers often faced retaliation, demotion, or termination. So senior management seemed to know of these issues but made few meaningful changes. Carrie Tolstead provided misleading information and incomplete reports to the board about the problem's scope, though the scandal didn't lead to restatements of Wells Fargo's financial statements because the monetary impact was considered immaterial compared to total revenues and assets. There were significant consequences. Wells Fargo paid over $10 billion in civil penalties and lawsuit settlements. Regulators restricted Wells Fargo's growth and imposed a $1 billion fine. Stumpf and Tolstead were forfeited significant unvested equity awards, and some execs were barred from the banking industry. Tolstead faced a prison sentence, later reduced to probation. So significant consequences for those issues. So those are our six articles for today. Here are the links for each of those articles. And thank you for bearing with me on all these. These are the sources that we cover. And I'll be back next month, and hopefully we'll get better and better and more like Mike. Back to
No,
you.
just stay Janae. Just stay Janae. You did great. Thank you so much. That Wells Fargo thing, don't get me started. So good. We're going to move on to our next segment. And our next segment is Ed Mofrad is going to be doing an interview with Arli from Start Small, Think Big, talking about a service day, talking about lunch and learns and how you can use that for your practice. Ed, are you with us? Maybe not. I see him. Ed Mofrad. I see Arli. How are you, Arli?
Doing good. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Good. Hey, do me a favor, because Ed I see him on, but he's not on. So I'm going to actually walk through this. If we can share your slides and stuff, we can just start until Ed jumps on.
Okay. Yeah, I can share my screen.
Oh, there you go. Oh, Ed, it looks
I'm
like
so
Ed's
sorry. My computer just froze. My screen just froze. I was frantically pounding on it till it came back on. I don't know why it froze.
all good. Ed, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, Arli, it's always good to see you. So good to see you. Sorry about that, Mel. How have you been? I'm always excited to interview Arli. This is not the first time. She's an awesome person to interview. She just brightens my day. She has all kinds of new stuff to report today. She has a volunteer event coming up. She has, I love your title. I love the very way you, phrase what you do. Start small, think big. That's what we're all entrepreneurs. That's how we all started. That's what keeps us young. That's what keeps us going. We think big, and we always think that we're at the beginning, even though we are getting on in years. Thank you for being here to help us. You do finance and legal services for entrepreneurs. I apologize again for coming on. I don't know what happened to my thing. It just froze. But tell me about Start Small and Think Big. Give us an overview, please.
Yeah. So my name is Arli Cornejal. I'm the finance program manager here, and we're part of a nonprofit. We're nationally based, so we offer services to entrepreneurs nationwide, all virtually. We don't have an actual office. We used to have one in New York, but now we've remote since COVID. But our goal is to advance equity inclusion for small entrepreneurs, and we do that by mostly servicing marginalized entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, and those people of color as well. And we offer finance and legal services pro bono.
Beautiful. I'm excited about your volunteer event coming up. It's on September 9th, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. What is that about?
Yeah, so this is an opportunity to meet with our clients. Again, this is a bit of their background, folks who have businesses in food, personnel, retail, apparel, accessories, folks who don't have a seed business, who have been in business for more than 3 months, but usually at least over a year. So you're going to be meeting with our entrepreneurs for 1 hour to go over financial projections or pricing analysis. It's a great opportunity to work with clients, give back, volunteer, maybe meet other folks at Aknatfa. It's a great opportunity to sign up for that.
And who can participate? Is there a limit as to the category of people who can participate, or do you want?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we are looking for folks who volunteer, who are, have a finance background, who have experience working, in finance. So, most of y'all would already qualify for that. You don't need to have small business experience. Ahead of time, we will give you a bit about the entrepreneur's background, who they are, their business, and you'll also be paired up with another volunteer as well. But yeah, you just need a finance background.
I see. I run marathons. Even now in my old age, I still run marathons. But my idea of volunteers are people handing out waters and fruits in the course of a marathon. Tell me, how do volunteers help entrepreneurs in this instance, and how is that visible or tangible?
Yes, so this is skill-based volunteering. So you have, expertise in this field, and entrepreneurs really do get a lot out of it. They're meeting with experts that maybe just will reaffirm some things that they want to do for their business, or maybe they want to reevaluate how they're handling their business strategies. And we're seeing that, it's folks that work with us, who receive pro bono services from us, that they are surviving at a higher rate and also are increasing the revenue. And again, folks come in, they might have, limited financial business knowledge, so they really do get a lot from these calls.
Awesome. Let's go back to the entity itself. Start small and think big. I know you provide legal and financial assistance, but being a finance person, let's zero in on finance. How do you help entrepreneurs with financial assistance?
Yes, so we support entrepreneurs by they can access with us bookkeeping support, so either bookkeeping setup or cleanup, and then they can also we also offer productions and pricing, and we do this through 4 different ways. So you can volunteer with us September 9th coming up very soon, which is our corporate day of service. You can also volunteer with us in other 3 ways, including you can also do a small group merchant sessions. That's you lead a small group of about 10 to 12 clients around specific topics. Maybe it's sales projections, maybe it's pricing analysis, maybe it's around bookkeeping. You can also lead a bigger webinar, and that's open to the public, limited to 1 hour, also virtual, and again, similar topics, maybe bookkeeping, projections, sales projections, profit and loss, similar topics. And you can also work with us one-on-one. Maybe you're not available September 9th, but you want to volunteer, you know, uh, in August or in October, or any other months. You're welcome to apply to be a volunteer, and you can sign up to, work with clients, meet with them one-on-one, have follow-up sessions, and it's very flexible. So if you want to volunteer, once a week, perfect. If you want to volunteer twice a month only, so you can do it also amazing. So you welcome all volunteers, and you can volunteer in all these 4 ways.
Uh, Now, this is do you charge people who come to you for help, or is it on a gratuitous basis, or is it on a sliding scale? What kind of charge are entrepreneurs looking for if they come
Yeah.
to you?
That is a great question. So we're a nonprofit, so we offer all of our services pro bono. So both our legal partners and financial partners, they all offer services pro bono. We also have volunteers to come in, individual ones to volunteer. Also pro bono, so we don't charge for anything.
Okay, but if you don't mind me asking, Arli, you're an entrepreneur, so how do you make your money?
Yes, so I am actually not a volunteer. I am actually a staff at Something Big. But yes, it's just great to support volunteers who want to give back and connect them with entrepreneurs who need some support.
Okay, and you must have donors and people who support you, right? Contribute to you.
Yes, another great way to give back to Start Something Big is by donating. You can log into our website, so I can leave that in the chat, and so you're welcome to volunteer either in these 4 ways or also give back monetarily.
Nice. So those who are listening, if you have extra cash or you're wondering what to do with, here's a great purpose, great cause to spend it on. Arli is in New York, but that's another question. Do you provide your support nationwide, or is it just people regional, or how?
Yes, so we do offer our services nationwide. That is for finance. For legal, we only offer services in either New York or California, but we offer our workshops or webinars to the public, all 50 states.
Why New York and California?
It's just based on where most of our legal partners are based off. So that's just for legal services, but for finance, we do offer it in every state.
Okay. Now, let's zero in on the legal part. What kind of legal services do you provide?
Yes, great question. So I think I have a slide. I don't think I have a slide on that. But so for legal services, we definitely work with other corporate partners. we also have legal volunteers. So we also work with, so folks can get help with contracts. Maybe they want to just look over different things. Maybe they want to sign up to be an LLC or change identity. Those are the kind of things we work with.
So let's say I'm a entrepreneur in need of help in Jersey, for example. And I used to live in Jersey. That's why this question came to my mind. If I came to you and you said you'll help people in California but not in Jersey, where are people in the tri-state area supposed to go if they're not in New York proper?
So we only offer legal services for folks in New York or California, but our financial services are being offered in all other states. And then we do have open workshops that are legal or financial for all the states as well. And we're opening up our small group sessions for legal topics also for other states.
I see. And if even if you don't help somebody in a given state who calls you, you know where to refer them in their area, right?
Yes, of course. If you are also a small business owner, you want to apply, you are welcome to come from any state, and we can also refer you to other services as well.
Where I'm going with these questions is you guys are providing a great service, a great cause. I just want people to know you're not going to turn anybody away just because they're not in a certain state or a certain region. So anybody can reach out to you, and even if you can't help them financially or legally, you can refer them somewhere else, somewhere viable, not just passing the buck, but a real place that they can seek help with their state, right?
Right.
Awesome. Is the application process difficult? Let's say if I come to you and I'm in New York or California, so that issue is resolved. Is it a lot of paperwork? Is there a lot of forms I have to fill out?
Yes, great question. So if you are looking to be onboarded as an entrepreneur, it's a very simple process. We have an intake. You basically fill out an eligibility process to see if you're eligible. You want to see at least 3 months of sales in the last yes, so 3 months of sales. So we don't take any business in the seed stage. You just basically fill out the intake, and then after that, we'll see if you are eligible. Then you'll be moving to a virtual intake, and then we'll see what kind of service you might need, so either in finance or legal. So very straightforward. If you want to apply to be a volunteer, you'll submit an application, and then we will review it, and then you will join our orientation, where you can learn more about, again, how you can volunteer, how to get into the weeds of volunteering, what it looks like to go through a consult, and then you'll be approved, and you can meet with clients.
I see. How meticulous you are in picking your volunteers. Let me give you an example. I came across a situation last fall where people were volunteering, financial professionals were volunteering. They were only looking for CFPs, not just financial professionals. And they were turning everybody else away. Do you have such meticulous requirements, or anybody who comes close to the requirements, you take them on?
Yes, so you're welcome to apply to be volunteer if you have, a finance background, if you're working in finance. So we just don't take any students, actually. So that's basically the bar for us. We just don't take any like undergrad students, but we will take like MBA students. But yeah, we're just looking for folks who have experience in finance. And we'll take, we have volunteers maybe who are only doing accounting, only doing bookkeeping, and then folks who are doing pricing, etc.
And for legal help, they have to be attorneys, right?
Yes, correct.
So you won't take paralegals or people with a lot of experience in doing legal work. They have to be attorneys.
Correct.
Got it. Tell me about how this great, and I really do believe in what you do, because a lot of entrepreneurs, when they start, they're faced with this looks seemingly insurmountable world of challenges and pitfalls and things they don't know, and they have a very limited budget often when they start. How did you come, not you per se, but your organization, how did they come to get this great organization started?
Oh, how did we start off?
Yeah. What idea, what event gave rise to, you starting this great
So,
organization?
so we've been active for about 15 years. So we started in New York. Um, our former AD who founded the org was with us for 15 years. So then she's then now just is part of our board. And I think it came out of just, seeing the needs of entrepreneurs. It started in, just offering legal services, but it has then expanded to offering both legal and finance. And it's just, there's no other org like us that is offering, services nationwide as well as virtual. So we see a lot of unique aspects to our organization.
This next question may seem odd or awkward, but do you have any competition? And are there other organizations in the New York area doing the same thing?
Yes, of course, there are, other orgs doing maybe the same work, but they're maybe, very local to maybe certain boroughs or certain counties or cities. So, when we host our small group sessions, it's great, folks log in and they see other folks from other states, maybe see similar businesses and how things might operate in a certain state, but in not a different one. So it's just great to see folks, readily engage and kind of compare and see what is working for someone in certain states and not maybe not others.
I see. Do you ever come across a situation where when you get too many calls, you're overwhelmed, so you have to refer out? Have you ever had that situation happen?
Yes, so we actually, again, we are looking for volunteers. We're actually looking for volunteers who can provide bookkeeping support. We do have a backlog of folks who need bookkeeping support. So setting up their bookkeeping, software, maybe that's Wave, maybe that's QuickBooks, maybe cleaning it up. So we are looking for folks with that kind of background. So if you have the background, someone that has a background, let them know about something and apply, since we do have a large backlog right now of that.
Okay, I'm getting increasingly worried messages from the organizers saying we have less than 3 minutes. So we have some questions that the audience sent. Richard Ray is asking, have you considered including college business student interns? Do you want to address that, Arli?
Yes, great question. So we have worked with a company before who, they uh we worked with their interns, their finance interns, to kind of do a day of service, corporate day of service. We haven't, and we also have worked with Harvard to do day of service with their MBA students. So we do want to expand to, other kind of MBA programs.
Okay, as we approach the end, let me ask you a more comprehensive question. What is the mission of the organization? In other words, in let's say 5 years from now, where do you see, not you per se, I understand you're only a part of the organization, you're not the whole thing, but the founders, the managers, where do they hope to see the organization in 5 or 10 years from now?
Yes, we definitely hope to continue expanding, to continue having uh, more folks apply, be part of our services, continue to onboard more volunteers and corporate partners so that we can continue offering the services, and hope to see our businesses that we work with thrive and grow and, get services that we are offering.
Okay. And again, because I want to encourage people nationwide, or even from, I do know there's international people listening to this. I don't want to discourage anybody from calling you simply because you're in New York. Let's say somebody from Iowa calls you and you refer them to somebody who does the same thing in Iowa. My question is, do you have a vetting process of vetting organizations across the nation or even internationally who do this kind of work in other states so you can refer, anybody who calls to you? Yeah, go ahead, please.
So if you want to volunteer and you are based internationally, we definitely do take international volunteers. So we've, worked with Blackstone in their London headquarters. So you're definitely welcome to volunteer from other countries. You have the same expertise. If you are entrepreneur from another country, right now we're just limited to the United States.
So you know how you said you take only attorneys, for example, for legal help? If I'm an attorney from Ghana, would you take me, or it has to be a U.S. attorney?
Yes, right now, so we mostly we have for legal services, we work a lot with corporate partners who are all based in the US. We're actually not taking many individual legal like lawyers right now. We're mostly working with corporate partners. So we wouldn't be taking international legal attorneys.
Awesome. Any last words you want to put in, Arli? Because we're
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, and I hope you can join us September 9th to volunteer with us entrepreneurs at 4 p.m. East Coast time for 1 hour.
they can do it virtually, right? They don't have to be there.
Yes, it's all virtual. Yes.
Okay, Arli, I really believe in your cause. I was personally excited to interview you. So thank you. Thank you for doing a great work you're doing. Thank you for the good cause. And back to our wonderful organizers.
Thank you, Ed. Goodbye. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Thanks, Arli. It was a pleasure having you guys. I put in the link to have, if you're interested in joining the day of service, I have the link in the chat. Let me know if you have any concerns as you're submitting that, and I'd be happy to help you with that. I have the second poll question up on the screen as well. Please remember to respond to all the poll questions to obtain CPE credit for the webcast. And quickly.
Most of us are our client's most trusted advisor, but too often they turn to us for guidance outside of our expertise. We're naturally wired to want to help, but the truth is we can't be experts in every field. At Exit on Your Terms, we offer a suite of insightful tools, assessments, and content to help owners gain clarity around transition planning. You can use the user-friendly tools alongside your client, or they can do so anonymously. Each thought-provoking exercise generates a customized report that accomplishes 3 important things. First, it introduces key planning concepts in a simple, straightforward way. Then, it prompts the kinds of critical conversations most owners avoid. And finally, it highlights why having a team of advisors from different functional areas is important, so your clients won't end up like the 75% of owners who leave their business with profound regrets. Our mission is simple. It's to raise the bar through collaboration so we can all deliver better outcomes. We'd love to build a relationship that supports your practice and your clients. Learn more at exitonyourterms.com.
I'll turn it back over to Alina.
Thank you, Chanda. Now we have Cheryl Hyder. She's one of our correspondents, and she's going to be interviewing Dr. Ramamoorti and Daven Morrison, and they are going to be talking about beliefs, behavior, and fraud evaluation. Cheryl?
Well, hello there. I'm just getting myself set up here, so y'all should be able to see my screen, right?
Yes.
All right. So today we have 2 of the co-founders of Behavioral Forensics Group, which is a group of professionals who approach fraud prevention and detection from several different angles, both financial investigation, organizational psychiatry, which is their specialties, accounting and behavioral forensics, which they both are involved in, and law enforcement. Their research continues to dig into the psychology of fraud, and what we're about to do is get an update on their work with a more extensive session after today's broadcast for those of you who have signed up. That's just me. So we are lucky to have Dr. Sri Ramamoorti, who's an indefatigable crusader in the name of integrity. He's invested in education both as a buyer and with his PhD from The Ohio State, and as a seller in education as an associate professor at the University of Dayton. His practical experience includes his tenure with an original Big 8 firm, later on with the surviving Big 4, other large firms, and so on. His wealth of his knowledge is amazing. Then we have Daven Morrison. He's a practicing organizational psychologist who's focused on deepening a senior executive's capacity for self-awareness. His client base is mostly the C-suite or top management team at the largest companies in corporate America. And they've had the benefit of his leadership programs and systems that he's developed that help clients identify the individual characteristics of both successful leaders and the leaders or stakeholders, on the other hand, who have a higher risk appetite than they may, than the organization may otherwise want to have. Let's do this. There you go. So these two gentlemen and their partners are no stranger to NACVA's audiences, whether they're presenting at conferences or sharing their time with us here. Dr. Sri, as an academic, has either authored or co-authored over 100 articles, many of which Daven is the co-author of. For today, it's most important that the article I'm showing here, the 2009 white paper they co-authored on the human elements of fraud, provided a foundation for the behavioral forensics book, which they published in 2013. They continue to share their valuable insights with us, something that we're all grateful for as we continue studying ways to actually combat fraud and get ahead of it, perhaps. So, guys, this is where their mutual tagline, "Bringing Freud to Fraud," comes from. Freud is a human act. Dr. Sri, why don't you talk about the fundamental question behind all the research that you two have done?
Well, thank you, Cheryl, for that a very glowing introduction of me and Daven. We appreciate that. So fundamentally, we talk about financial forensics, which is using financial models to learn about any schemes of cooking the books. It could be ratios, it could be relationships between numbers that look a little suspect, whatever. And then we, of course, have computer forensics, which is the use of technology to commit fraud, and people who are good at that domain can use that. But these are just instruments of fraud. What David and I and our colleagues decided that we need to go to the root cause. We need to go look at the source. And the source, of course, is one or more human beings. These are the folks who have the motivation, they have the intent to deceive, and that's all about human behavior. And that's how we came up with the term behavioral forensics to characterize, this journey that we were going from the how of fraud to the why of fraud. Why are these people committing fraud, even though many of them are very successful, and if they're caught, they're going to find them in the slammer? That makes no sense. Why would an otherwise intelligent person take these kind of dangerous risks that could, really ruin their lives? So that's what got us to get into this area. We knew it was not greed, and I don't need to get Daven going, but that really gets his goal.
Well, I guess it would, because, he's studying the organizational side of it and, the personal attributes of these people. So, Daven, why don't you weigh in on that, about how you got started in this and the impact of the people question?
Well, when I first finished my schooling, I was interested in all sorts of problems and new ways of working with people. And one of the things that always interested me was the intersection of sort of hard objective data with more subjective data. And my career crossed paths with Sridhar at the Institute for Information Integrity.
Oh.
And the idea was we were going to come up with a set of mathematical formulas, not quite as complicated, but similar to those behind Mr. Penny Pincher here. And we wanted to basically say, as at the end of the day, all of the transactions for American Express has this, this integer, this number of information integrity. And a guy got up at the front of the room, and we were sort of figuring our way around. We were a not-for-profit board of how we're going to do this, how we're going to support the guy who had this vision. We wanted it to be free for the marketplace. And he said, I'm really interested in this particular problem because I come from an organization where we missed the boat, and he was from Anderson. Then he went on to say, and I have a PhD in psychology. And then he said some couple of other things. I was like, wow, this person's compelling. I want to know more about who that guy is. And that was Sridhar, Dr. Ramamoorti. He was working at Grant Thornton at the time, responsible for corporate governance, head partner there. And we went on to kind of, together with another colleague from the FBI, reconstitute or help reconstitute a center for white collar crime. So that's the general nidus of it. And in that dialogue with the sort of different disciplines, law enforcement, accounting, and psychology, psychiatry, mental health, was the roots of our paper, the ABCs of behavioral forensics. And the ABC stands for, sorry, Cheryl, I'm almost done.
That's right. Go.
The idea of the apple, the bad bushel, and the bad crop. We've continued on to refine that
Right.
To the present day.
And you're going to continue doing that. So one of
Yes.
the things that
Yeah.
I liked about the stuff that I've read from the two of you, which is a lot, you analogized the path that a financial analyst typically will take in terms of quantifying the results of their work. And, is something material? Isn't it material? And the definition of material that we're all generally working from is something that's going to change the outcome, or it's going to change the direction of the decision. And if I understood you guys correctly when we spoke last week, you're using the word material with respect to your research on the human side. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, let me take that, Cheryl. So I actually wrote my PhD dissertation on the topic of materiality in auditing,
Oh, wow.
both at the planning stages as well as the evaluative stages of auditing. And so, yeah, I was all over financial materiality. I'm trained originally as a chartered accountant from India. I'm a CPA, so very much accounting oriented. But as I got into that topic more and more, I realized that the financial focus on just the money is perhaps too narrow. We need to broaden the aperture to look at wider things. And so increasingly, I've been concerned about topics like, where because of climate change, we're finding a disappearing environment. And so if you as a kid have been to the Great Barrier Reef, in Australia, and you now see the coral reef disappearing, you experience what is called eco-grief. You feel sad that, oh my God, I guess my children will not have this opportunity to experience the beauty of the environment that I did as a child.
Okay.
Similarly, during COVID, a lot of nurses saw that people who were desperate were probably not supported by their insurance companies just because maybe COVID was new or they just didn't have that coverage. And so they literally were kind of left to die. And so that caused in these nurses what is called moral injury, where you find another human being not being supported. And so these are just two examples. So how do you measure eco-grief with financial materiality? How do you measure moral injury with financial materiality? And I suspect you cannot, because it's just too narrow. It's very unidimensional. It's just dollars and cents. And eco-grief and moral injury do not lend themselves to financial measurement. And that's where Daven came in with this notion of psychological materiality to deal with areas that go beyond just the financial dimension, but which are nevertheless significant and important. So I'm going to have Daven talk about that.
Thank you, Sri. Yeah, there's two parts to where this idea came from, the origin story of this idea of the psychological materiality. A lot of my work is with municipal leaders. About a third to half of my work is with people that are running cities. So these are the city managers, the police chiefs, the finance directors, fire chiefs, public works directors. And when I was beginning to bring the ideas of the ABC book out to the different people I worked with, my clients, et cetera, we did a workshop on this locally here in Chicago. And at that point, Rita Crunwell had kind of been a big story for those of you who know He was the one that defrauded everyone to support
Horses.
her horse addiction. Yeah. So I went at it, and there was another accounting firm that was there, and they had a lot of experience with I had experience with the concept of it and what impairs executive judgment, and of course Arthur Anderson that I shared with Sri. But they had specific cases, and there was a story of somebody who was moving through the communities and outside Chicago, and they knew that if they were to take anything above $10,000, it now became financially material to the point that they would get legal charges. The police would come down on them. They'd create a record. Other than that, it was just a nuisance. It wasn't worth writing up. Financial directors were highly desired, high quality people that interviewed well were highly desired. So this person was able to move through the system and basically work for 6 months and take their salary and their 10 grand and move on to the next sucker. So I thought, what's happening here? And they said, well, it wasn't financially material. And I said, well, it certainly seems to be psychologically material. Why aren't we drawing attention to this? What are we doing to stop this? This is obscene. And then the next part of it was the idea of presenting actually to NACFA and thinking about where do the proverbial deals end up on the reefs of disaster where the deals don't go through.
Right.
And a lot of times it has to do with arguments over something like grandpa's clock on the mantle, or I wanted to be able to be the one that made the decision where the headquarters was held. So very psychologically material things, but on the balance sheet, how do you account for them? And they kill deals.
Right. It's about that kind of stuff is the that's the intangibles of the business, right? And I agree with you. It's going to kill the deal. It's going to kill a lot more than that, especially when you factor in that, there's these studies out there that talk about how your white collar criminal is going to be a long-term trusted employee. And you've got this new hire, right, who's not violating your trust. So if you can't quantify the emotional toll that the fraud is taking on these people, does that mean that you can just ignore it? I can't put a number to it, so therefore it doesn't exist. What do you think?
Cheryl, I'm into poetry, you know that. So on this one, I just give you a couple of quick verses, which is friendship is like earthenware. Once broken or betrayed, it can be mended, but the crack is always there.
Right.
And it's that crack that we are talking about. You never seem to get away from that. That once you've lied, I can never trust you again. Because you have lied once, that's enough. And this is why perfection is the only solution. If a company says we are 99% honest in our dealings, that's not good enough. What if you are that 100% with whom they're going to be dishonest? So you're not going to feel good about that, are you? So there you go. So only 100% will do.
And that, Daven, I've got to believe that, that's something that as an organization, you get rid of the bad apple or the bad bushel, whichever it might be, the company still has to come back from that. How hard is that for you in your role to come back from?
Well, I was appreciative of the quality and the people at Arthur Anderson. They went down fighting, as you may know, and ultimately were found to be they were exonerated. But the name is associated with Enron. The name is associated with untrustworthy accounting and dishonesty. They're having a bit of a renaissance, at least around tax. But yeah, it takes a long time. And another organization we worked with here in Chicago, Continental Bank, those wounds last a long time, and they feel very angry on the inside because it's just a few often at a high enough level that cause the problems. More distantly, I'm familiar with Wells Fargo story that was said at the opening, as well as the clean diesel of Volkswagen,
Mhm.
and just in the sense that it was a circumscribed sort of bad bushel of people, but the leaders knew. The leaders knew, and that's something that I think both Sri and I are frustrated with. On the other side of things,
Yep.
it gets to be just a number rather than some actual, other than somebody like Elizabeth Holmes, where somebody actually serves time and sends a warning that knock it off, don't do this anymore.
Well, that's a great lead in to they knew, but they didn't do anything
Right.
because, they have their head down, they're ignoring facts and so on.
Yeah.
What do you do when you see somebody who's just refusing to see the facts? How do you guys approach that in your studies?
Well, I think part of what we're looking for at the core of it, Cheryl, and we'll talk more about this afternoon, is solid or sound judgment. And that's a ability to be comfortable with ambiguity, to be comfortable with being either hyper-competitive or around hyper-competitive people, and to knowing that there's a continuum of getting close to the edge of things, and then being able to back away and stay honest with your clients, put yourself in the shoes of your clients, and of course your employees as well. That was the challenge, right, of the Wells Fargo thing. The pressure was enormous
Okay,
on
great.
them. Some of it was happening outside of their point of view. So
Well,
yeah,
so
go ahead.
no, keep going.
It's very important to be able to also remember that, and we'll talk more about this afternoon, of the limitations of trying to create a profile. Because once you, back to the aperture idea of materiality, once you start thinking that you have the profile and you have the answers, you're going to miss the guy who's actually, or gal, who's pulling off the fraud.
Right. Well, that's, what about it, Sri? What do you have to say about this?
So the biggest psychological thing in this is what is called confirmation bias,
Right.
where people are just wedded to their own view of the world, and if that view is somehow distorted, or worse, they've gotten away with it before. This is why I refuse to believe that there is any first-time offender. They've already done something before. They've
Yeah,
they've
but they got to
cut
start somewhere, right?
Exactly. And of course, as the late Joe Colatar, one of our partners, used to say, have you ever heard of anyone who started stealing $1 million and then worked their way down? They always work their way up.
Right.
Always up, never down. Which means, you actually get the adrenaline rush, of being able to defraud and deceive people and get away with it. And you know what? You actually conclude you're smarter. That's why you got away with it. And so it's a very disturbing reality for them when they actually get caught. They can't believe that somebody smarter than them actually caught them.
But that's always what happens, though.
Right.
And I'm sure it's frustrating about to be in that situation where, your leadership is refusing to see the facts. And I assume more about that will come this afternoon. Because the meaningful progress, I think the punchline to everything that we spoke about so far has been that this is like a team game. Okay. Just like your turtle. Somebody had to get him up there. This is a team sport. It's a multidisciplinary challenge. Final thoughts on that?
Well, so it
I
really
have-
is very important to understand that birds of the same feather flock together. Bad apples can be very effective and
Right.
smart in recruiting others. And so imagine if you have internal controls where you're trying to keep two people with incompatible duties or functions away from each other. What if they actually decide to collude and collaborate? Well, there goes your internal controls.
Right.
So this is the problem you have with fraud as a team sport. All the existing guardrails that you've set up, they pretty much become meaningless, because they've figured out a way around it.
I would also add, Cheryl, I know we're near the end, but with the onset of gig economy, fractured showing up at work or not, and then adding on AI. There's a bunch of new stuff we'll talk about today that makes the risk higher and puts the getting to a consensus on a value of something makes it that much harder interpersonally.
Yeah.
So it challenges the certified evaluator.
Yeah, it's going to get more interesting, I think, rather than less, especially as some of the information we're used to using disappears.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
folks, if you haven't yet registered, obviously you can't click on this link, but if you want to hear more about the fact that fraud is really just a response to emotion, or that it's really just it's a human act in a complex environment, something like that, go on and, register yourself and the guys will see you there. Fellas, thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Daven, and thank you, Sri.
welcome.
It's fascinating stuff, behavioral stuff, and the
Yep.
psychology behind it. So the why behind what they do.
Yep.
And everything. So with that, I think Chinda, you want to, we have got something for the conference coming up.
And just again, Dr. Cheryl, Morty, and David will be presenting later today, so the link is there. We also have some future events coming up for the ABW in-depth webinars, which is also in your material. So if you're interested, there's a QR code on the screen. We can get more information about the upcoming sessions as well. And then with that, we just have a quick little message from our conference chairs. And I'll play.
Hello and welcome. We are thrilled to invite you to the 2025 Business Valuation and Financial Litigation Super Conference. This year's premier event for professionals in business valuation and financial litigation.
You know, in today's fast-changing world, it can feel like we're racing just to keep up. But with change comes opportunity. Opportunities to reflect on where we've been and envision where we want to go and set ambitious new standards for ourselves and for our profession.
That's exactly what this year's Super Conference is about. Over 2 dynamic days, we'll hear from renowned experts and emerging leaders who will guide us in exploring key opportunities such as redefining our professional identity, leveraging expertise to deliver exceptional value as trusted business consultants, strengthening intergenerational collaboration, expanding into new practice areas and global standards, and harnessing technology to enhance productivity and profitability.
We can't wait for you to join us in Salt Lake City for powerful insights, practical solutions, and meaningful connections.
Together, we'll reignite our passion, redefine our profession, and reshape our future. We look forward to seeing you at the Super Conference.
All
We'll
right.
turn it back over to Mel.
Thank you, Chinda. And with that, we're gonna go to one of the most popular sessions and segments of AVW, and that is with the honorable judges and the conversations. And Alan Zipp is going to be the one that is going to be talking with the judges today. Alan is an attorney, he's a CPA, he's a evaluator. He's been in the business for a lot of years, does a lot of stuff. One of the smartest people in this arena. So, Alan, I'm going to turn it over to you. You're going to be talking about the Daubert Challenge or Daubert Challenge or however we pronounce it, and how we can kind of get through that. So I'm looking forward to it.
I appreciate it. Am I sharing? Because I don't know how to do this.
I don't see your screen right now.
Okay. How do I need to figure out how to do it.
Where I can share for him.
All right.
Oh, wait, I can do it if you tell me how to do it here.
Down at the bottom, is there a share?
Let's see. I need to go back to the Zoom. Somehow I lost the Zoom. Okay. Share. Okay, there we go. Got it. I think
There we go.
We're good? Okay.
It's coming up. And we just got to go in presentation mode and you're good.
Okay. Wonderful. We have, this is a very, very complex issue. We're going to simplify it for the audience. We have Judge Driscoll, we have Judge Platt, and I think Judge Yates may come in. He said he had to, he was in a conference. In any event, the issue today is how valuation and forensic experts can avoid Rule 702, Daubert. That's exclusions. That's to prevent us from presenting testimony. So I'm going to skip over the resumes and move right into the material. Let's start with the rule so we all understand the rule that a witness who is qualified as an expert by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education may testify in the form of an opinion or otherwise only, and this is a critical part, if the court is convinced by a preponderance of the evidence that all four of these factors exist, that the testimony will help the trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact and issue, and the testimony is based on sufficient facts or data, and the testimony is based on reliable principles and methods, and the testimony reflects a reliable application of the principles and methods to the facts of the case. And there must be an attorney who offers the expert witness, and that attorney is required to demonstrate to the court that it is more likely than not that those Rule 702 factors have been met. Judges, please tell us, what evidence is the court looking to hear from the proponent in order to admit the expert witness to testify? And then at the same time, what if you hear something, what is likely to result in the exclusion of our testimony? Judges,
So let's just start with what the rule says. And Alan, you emphasized it with the conjunction and. It's not or. You've got to go 4 for 4. You got to go 4 for 4 to have expert testimony be admissible. All right. So the witness has to have the education or experience to be helpful to the trier of fact. 1. So that's who you are. That's what you're bringing to the table. Do you have the experience or the education, perhaps both, to be helpful to the trier of fact? So you've got to have that to start. You're bringing that to everything you do. Second, have you gotten sufficient facts to render an opinion? So that's the conversation between you and retaining counsel to make sure that you've got what you need based on your experience and education to render an opinion. That's all at the engagement level. Do you have what it takes? And do you then get from retaining counsel sufficient information to render an opinion? From there, then you've got to actually have a methodology that's grounded in some kind of science or some kind of principle that can be replicated. And then you got to apply that methodology. So I would stress to all the folks who are with us today that you do have to go 4 for 4, and it is incumbent upon you to tell retaining counsel what experience and education you have so that they can argue to the judge that you have the sufficient education and experience. And then it's incumbent upon you to ask for what you need. If you don't have sufficient facts or data, I don't know how you can render an opinion, but I sure as heck know that judges aren't going to let you testify unless you have the facts or data necessary to render an opinion.
How do you know that? How do you know at that time?
Well, you keep asking. Well, so I haven't testified as an expert yet, and I don't think I ever will. So that's such a great question, Alan. And I'll be interested in hearing Judge Platt because he's been off the bench for a while. I don't know if he's ever testified as an expert. Perhaps he has. If you think you need something, you need it. I think that would be you want more information rather than less information.
Judge Platt, what if you hear some words from, let's say, the opposing counsel who is trying to argue that Daubert should be applied, and the expert should not be allowed to testify. What do you hear that would make you rule not to allow the expert to testify? What kind of information? Judge Platt, I think you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted, Steve.
Yeah, you're still muted, Judge Platt.
I'm not very persuasive when I'm muted. It's more, my experience is it's not what I hear, it's what I don't hear. And what I don't hear is evidence that all four, as Judge Driscoll just mentioned. I'd also say that if it's helpful to know, Dalbert was replaced I think it was 50 or 60 years ago federally. Some of the states took a while. Maryland took longer than a while. But if anything has emerged from that, it is the necessity that Judge Driscoll alluded to of very much closer collaboration and understanding and dialogue between the expert and the hiring counsel. It's hiring counsel's burden, not yours. He or she wants you to testify, or they wouldn't have hired you. But the bottom line is that if that counsel doesn't understand what needs to be done, and I would suggest that there are lawyers whose experience is not in proffering the qualifications and for expert witnesses who don't know. So do not assume that the lawyer you're talking to, you can Google them, you can find out maybe, has the level of experience and knowledge to know what to do and know what questions to ask, and more importantly, know what information to get from you. You can give them all the information you want. If they don't know how to do it, you're going to have a problem. And it is not a problem you can solve in the courtroom because you can't answer questions that aren't being asked.
Well, that's another issue. That we may not even be there when this motion is heard. But if you could help us out, can you distinguish between reliability and credibility? Because credibility is not a prerequisite under 702, but reliability is.
I think reliability, the word reliability implies something has occurred in the past that would be probative of the qualifications. Because reliability, you can't be reliable based on one experience. And so you're looking to see whether or not this opinion has ever been used in facts similar to these. Has this witness ever been accepted before? Now that was the criteria, the sole criteria before Dalbert was general acceptance. And it didn't matter what. But now it does, and so it has to be an opinion that has in the past been accepted in cases where issues are similar. Again, that word reliability. Credibility is you can be credible based on one appearance. I believe him. He's made a very good impression. I think, when you take somebody's deposition, the first thing you're looking for is, are they credible? When I'm looking at cases to settle them, I'll say, did you take the plaintiff's deposition? How'd he do? And the answer to how'd he do was whether he was credible or not on that occasion. That isn't what this rule requires. That requires, so I think credibility is encompassed in reliability, but the reliability is a larger time frame.
And reliability requires, as Judge Platt is saying, some kind of replicability. I think that's a word, replicability, meaning that whatever you've done and your methodology can be replicated or understood enough to be replicated by someone else. So it's not just that it's been done before, and it's that you could do it now. You could figure out how you got to your opinion. Lack of credibility is not a basis to exclude testimony. That being said, in the cases that I handle, most of my trials are bench trials. I would imagine for those of us who are joining here today, the cases on which you're retained, you're generally going to be testifying before a judge and not a jury because of the amount of the money at stake and the complexity of the issues. So just because the judge is letting you testify in a bench trial, don't presume that the judge is going to say, ah, yes, expert Smith, you are credible. I am believing what you are saying.
And what Judge Driscoll has alluded to is a judge trial. The judge can, even by expressing doubt, although if he's smart, he won't. If he's going to let it in, he lets it in and then destroys it in his opinion.
Okay.
And
we
nobody
get
ever
involved.
got the likelihood of a reversal, which is how judges measure their success or their record, which probably is a mistake in and of itself, but is measured by the reverse number of times the reversal. So a judge's calculation when ruling on an objection or a Daubert challenge or anything like that is always going to be what's the risk? The risk is of a reversal. It's much less if it's a judge trial, if you let it in and then you go, I found him not to be. You could almost make out a case in your opinion that you're not accepting his opinion because he wasn't credible or he wasn't reliable or whatever, and still let it in. So as Judge Driscoll suggested or said, don't assume things.
Okay.
Don't declare victory because you got to testify.
Let me just supplement that with something Judge Platt said about how judges, measure their success after 18 years of doing this kind of work. And Judge Platt similarly sat on the bench for many years. I measure. I think of the movie Caddyshack. When the judge and Chevy Chase are having a conversation. How do you measure yourself, Ty? By height. So I don't measure myself by affirmances or reversals at this point. But and Judge Platt said that's not a way that I don't think it's a basis for judges to measure themselves. But the judge wants to get it right. And the judge also wants to make sure that he or she doesn't try the case more than once.
Right.
Excluding evidence, it increases the likelihood of the case being retried, I believe, much more than including evidence, particularly in a bench trial. Right, Steve? I mean, you'd agree with that, right?
Couldn't agree more. And I would also say that there's an old saying. I can't. I'll tell one very short war story. The answer is I've never testified as an expert but I was asked several times and I couldn't because ethics preclude a judge who is, in my kid's situation, a senior judge recalled to sit as a judge from ever testifying as an expert in any court. I did get asked to testify as an expert in the bankruptcy court of New York. And I asked told the attorney, the short answer is I can't for ethical reasons, but just out of curiosity, what would I be an expert in the bankruptcy court of New York? And his answer was the law of damages in Maryland. I said, well, if it's any consolation to you, if I were the judge, and I would not allow me to testify.
Can you? Well, there's a lot of material here, and I would love to hear these stories. But can you talk about the data and the methodology question? What part of the issue on reliability is there must be a sufficient factual basis for the conclusion or the opinion, and there are two sub-elements to that. One is an adequate supply of data, and then a reliable methodology. Can you comment on that?
Go ahead, Tim.
Oh no, Steve, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The methodology is increasingly important because that is the main method of attack now. Most experts that are presented to the court can make a prima facie case that they are qualified by training and experience. Where the attack is going to take place is on the methodology and or the sufficiency or accuracy of the facts. And if it's to be successful, it'll be on that basis.
I appreciate that. There was a study, PricewaterhouseCoopers did a study of Daubert challenges over a 20-year period, and they reported the primary reason for exclusion was a lack of reliability and then followed by a lack of relevancy.
Right.
The most commonly cited reason for lack of reliability was insufficient data and faulty methods.
Right.
Can you comment there?
I would think the faulty methods would be much more open to attack because the insufficient data, you could always want more. And that would be retaining counsel would, after the expert is being attacked, say, or argue to the judge, everybody could always want more information, but does the expert have sufficient information? This was sufficient, and here's why. So I think that's I'm not disagreeing with the Pricewaterhouse study, but I'm suggesting that for most judges, I think the reliability would really hinge on the methodology of the expert more than it would hinge on what the expert reviewed.
And I would suggest that social media and all of the various news sources around them, including journals that are of questionable reliability, and really the attack on experts, period, it affects that to a certain extent. Now, it's a courtroom and not a town hall, and I've had to say that a couple of times. But the bottom line is that the attack on experts that's going on at various governmental levels, loyalty being more important than experts and so forth. That's not a political argument, but it is an argument that can be made, and it is being made in courtrooms around the country for expert witnesses. Who says you're an expert? Why are you reliable, and who says so? And what is the source of your methodology?
One of the problems
is a conspiracy theory. What is it?
Yeah, but one of the problems we have is that we don't get a chance to tell you why we think there's enough data. And let me just walk you through the launching a Daubert challenge.
Let me just briefly, isn't that the fault of hiring counsel that they didn't ask that question?
Yeah, I would agree, but here's what's happening. There are several ways to make a Daubert challenge. One is at the time that the expert is being offered at trial, but more often is the motion in limine that is done well in advance of trial, and there's an actual hearing on the merits of that argument. For example, here, I'm showing that the judge hears arguments on the motion and makes a decision, but here's the key, without explanation from the expert. Can you comment on that, on how do you make that decision based on legal arguments and deposition testimony and the report?
I was on the circuit court. Go ahead, Tim.
I'm sorry. Oh, I mean,
for 16 years, and I've never had a motion in limine that the expert wasn't there. And the reason I haven't had a hearing without the expert being there is because I had mostly good lawyers.
And to the extent that you didn't have the expert there, you'd want the expert there, I think, as the judge.
Right. I can't imagine what the rationale for not having the expert there, other than he costs to be there.
Hopefully that's not the reason.
Well, I think it probably is the reason, with inexperienced and cheap counsel.
Well, now that could be then. I defer to your judgment on this, but here's the problem: is that we as experts, and we had a major case in Maryland not long ago where the expert was excluded, and the question was on the reliability of the data, and we don't have time to get into it, but it's a question that it was sent back to the trial court, who then said, no, I agree that we should exclude that person. Here's the question I'd like to ask and let you talk. If lack of reliability can be classified in a legal context as deficient evidence, and that includes insufficient data, irrelevant data, absence of facts, inaccuracy, faulty assumptions, and deficient reasoning as examples, how does the court evaluate the word reliability in hearing a motion in limine in order to decide whether to allow the expert testimony without hearing an explanation from the expert? What does the court say?
I think that assumes the fact not in evidence, as Judge Platt suggested earlier, which is that the judge will want to hear an explanation from the expert, more likely than not. And so as an expert, tell retaining counsel, hey, counsel, I can help you. I can help you not only when I'm sitting in my office preparing a report, but I can help you in the courtroom. I'll be there to whisper in your ear or to take the stand if the judge would like me to for a couple of minutes. I think you really want to make sure you're comfortable saying that to retaining counsel. Upon being in the courtroom, be the teacher. Take your time to explain what principles you used and why you used those principles rather than a competing principle. Because what are you in the courtroom? You are a teacher. You are teaching the judge about concepts that, even if the judge is somewhat familiar with them, the judge doesn't breathe them the way you do.
Let me. I'm going to skip over these facts right here, and let me ask you these questions. If there's a dispute between whether the data is adequate to support the expert's conclusion, what should the trial court do? Exclude the testimony of the expert or allow cross-examination process to determine credibility? What is your preference?
I'll let Judge Platt answer that. I know we're almost out of time, and I'll and for two reasons. One is almost out of time, but second, because I don't want to suggest what a judge should do or shouldn't do. I can't comment on pending or impending cases. Judge Platt has full First Amendment rights, however, as a retired judge. So I'll defer to him.
I would go back. I'm going to answer it by quoting Judge Driscoll, a learned scholar in this area. The bottom line is what he said 10, 15 minutes ago. All fours are required, period. And so the answer to if the burden on all fours are not met, it's going to be excluded. Now, for all the reasons we've already alluded to, as a practical matter, if it's a court trial, it may not be excluded up front in the motion to eliminate or even at the trial. But the answer is, what should a judge do? Is what the judge should do is to support his findings, and the way that he's going to do that would be to cite one of the four factors as simply not having been met.
Well done. I'm having trouble moving my screen. Don't know why.
I saw the time. I saw that we're done 4 minutes ago. So I'm concerned, Alan, if we keep going. I don't know.
We have one more minute, I thought, but
okay.
I'm not moving the screen properly. In any event, I'll just do it here. Are we
Just take
looking
your
at
hour.
a gatekeeper or an armed guard?
I'm using that metaphor, Alan. Thank you. I'm going to say a judge is a gatekeeper and not an armed guard for so many reasons.
All righty. I guess we're at our end, but you've given us all the advice we can, and that is meet the requirements. And that's really what we have to do. So thank you. You guys are incredibly good. Really good information.
The answer to that last question, by the way, is hire Michael Kaplan.
Here I am. And you can download my retainer agreement in the chat box.
Thank you, judges, very, very much.
I have just a few comments. This was just an outstanding, beyond outstanding presentation. I just want to add a few points from my perspective as an expert. What can an expert do, given that we have to deal with the new and improved Rule 702? And this is something we have to remember, that we are the experts. We've always had this standard that we had to meet. It's just been codified a little bit differently. What I am going to say is that we as experts need to begin preparing for the challenge, for the 702 challenge, from the moment we start working on the case. As we build our files, as we formulate our opinions, as we develop our work papers, we need to ask ourselves, what evidence supports this position? What is it that we have to do so that we've got the best evidence to support positions that we're taking, that we've made a proper selection of methodology, that we've applied it in a reliable manner, and that our opinion is the logical product of applying this methodology to the most reliable evidence. And sometimes experts forget about that. Sometimes they go to put together their defense to a 702 challenge after that motion has been served. That's not the time to do it. When you get into the case, you start doing it. One of the things that's really critical as part of the process, I always ask myself, what have I missed here? What have I missed? I sit down with my senior colleagues and we go through everything that I've done and say, what is opposing counsel going to try to do with this? Where will he or she take it? What is it that I could do to be stronger in that area? Judge Platt pointed out that this is really retaining counsel's burden to demonstrate, that we meet those 4 requirements. There's a little bit more to that. Yes, it is retaining counsel's burden, but if it goes south, it follows us around for the rest of our careers. We have been excluded as experts. So, we've got as much skin in the game or more than retaining counsel does. So just remember that we just do the best work, be fully documented. I'd rather go overboard on procedures and documentation and be prepared for any challenge that opposing counsel will bring to exclude me as an expert. It's critical. It's important. It's just a part of the process. And those of us who have been in the business a long time, I've been doing this for more than 50 years. And I have to say that with each year that goes by, I am more and more consumed with this process of surviving that challenge that opposing counsel brings. So, and if your retaining counsel does not want to spend the time with you or prepare with you or doesn't give you enough time, just really keep coming back. Explain to retaining counsel why it is so critical and that it's his or her case that you are really helping. You're making his or her case stronger by your being stronger every step of the way. I want to thank Alan for coming up with such an outstanding topic and for our judges for presenting so well in such a meaningful manner. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Before we head on over to Alina, I just want to do a quick topic that's related to this. We have the Financial Litigation Expert Bootcamp coming up next month, September 8th to 10th, and there is a special promotion that we're offering down below. So $500 if you register using that promo code before August 25th. So yeah, there's a QR code, so scan that to register. And with that, I'll turn it over to Alina.
Thank you, Shanda. Thank you to the judges and especially to Mr. Michael Kaplan. He's always, bringing his knowledge to us as an expert. But now we are going to pass over to Justin Nielsen. He's one of our board members, and he's going to be leading this month segment about the standard board. So, Justin from Willamette.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Yes, nailed it. Thank you so much, Anita.
Thank you for being with us today.
You got it. Really appreciate the opportunity to present today. Good morning to everyone and good afternoon to others. Today, basically, we're going to talk about some standards and ethics bulletin. What we're going to focus on, and as a quick introduction, my name is Justin Nielsen, a director with Willamette Management Associates up here in currently cloudy Portland, Oregon, which I know is surprising. But we are going to go over some of the recent NACVA updated FAQs. And for those who aren't familiar, the FAQs are basically available to help members interpret and adhere to the NACVA standards. And so amongst those, we have quite a few FAQs. what I'm going to talk about today are a few of the more recent FAQs. We did have some updated FAQs that were approved in June 2025. Obviously, as the profession is continually moving forward, there's an ability and a need to have some clarity with regard to these standards and how we all interpret and adhere to those standards. Of these FAQs, this includes 15 total new FAQs that the Standards Board really worked hard to put together and were approved. Of those, 7 of the new FAQs address artificial intelligence. Obviously a very hot topic currently, and it talks about really the use by NACVM members and how to successfully use AI to defend your analysis, to construct your analysis, and just the ways that we want to ensure adherence with the standards by using any AI technology. And this will be covered in a future presentation, but just wanted to mention that. Real quickly, just go ahead and show you exactly where these are located. So for ease of use and reference, they are located on the NACV website. This is a quick link that you could go to find these FAQs. And just as to make it easier to go through the website, because sometimes I need a little help myself, you basically go to the main page under Association. You click on that link. That will take you here. And from here, you want to go on to the Professional Standards and Ethics link, which will bring you to that main page. And within the main page on the Professional Standards and Ethics, there will be a link for Standards and Ethics FAQ Library. And that's where you want to click on. And this is just a snapshot of the very first page. There's multiple pages. Obviously, as I mentioned, there's 15 new FAQs. There's quite a bit more in there. But this is where you'll start, and you can go ahead and see all those FAQs provided by
Justin, I don't want to
NACVM.
interrupt.
Sure.
We can't see your screen, though. You didn't show your screen.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Thanks. There you go. Thank you.
Got it. I'll go back here just so we can start again. This is the website, the actual link. So you want to see the standards and the FAQs. Again, real quick, Association, move through over here to Standards and Ethics, here to the Ethics FAQ, and then that brings us to our FAQ library. Now, again, today we'll be talking about just a brief discussion of some of the new FAQs that were approved in June 2025. Of these new FAQs, that includes 2 litigation-based FAQs and 13 non-litigation-based FAQs. Something that people may not know, all the FAQs do include an interpretation section. So sometimes that can be very handy to understand exactly where and how to interpret these FAQs and how to adhere to the standards best on these FAQs and questions. So the first one I wanted to go over, this is the new litigation FAQ number 1. And this one basically talks about serving as a joint expert. And the question is, can a member or credentialed designee serve as a joint expert for parties with adverse interests? And the answer is yes. But because of the inherent adverse interests present within all joint engagements, it is critical that a member or credentialed designee maintain continuous adherence to the ethical principles within the NACVA standards. Some additional clarification within that FAQ. It is advisable to consult legal counsel before accepting such a role and to have written understanding of the nature, scope, and limitations of which services and responsibilities of the member/credential designee, which may imply representing only one party at a certain point in the engagement. It also discusses that if a conflict of interest arises during the engagement, the expert must immediately disclose it to all parties and consider recusal if it cannot be resolved. In addition to this, which was the other FAQ number 2 within the litigation update, it does say that the ethical obligation by the member or the credentialed designee to disclose to all parties immediately upon finding if there is any sort of conflict of interest. Quick side note, we actually just recently signed up a case that is similar to this, where we're quote unquote a neutral expert. This is for a partnership buyout. And so we're representing both parties as a neutral expert. And as part of that, we did sign up and talk to counsel on both sides. So they're both included on the engagement letter. And we specifically noted out the nature, scope, and limitations of our engagement. So I think it is very important that legal counsel be involved in this type of engagement. It just helps take away any impropriety. And also, I believe if there is a conflict of interest, and this is just myself personally, I typically would just recuse myself from that unless there is an ability to resolve that. I'm not exactly sure exactly what could be, how we resolve a conflict of interest, but the standards do allow you to do that as long as both parties agree to it. So the next FAQ that we're going to highlight is one of the new non-litigation FAQs. And this one relates to basically information provided by the client. And the question was, can a member credential designee rely on client-provided information without corroboration? The answer to that is actually yes. According to NACVA, GACVA professional standards, a member or credential designee may rely on information provided by a client or other source without corroboration, provided that such reliance is discussed in the report. In my opinion, I feel that you would want to be explicitly clear that any information that was not corroborated is discussed in the report and presented as such. So while you are allowed to use information that is not corroborated, as long as that is disclosed, when we get to the next FAQ, non-litigation FAQ, it talks about reliance on client-provided information. Does that also extend to the client's selection or weighting of data? This really gets into what we do, which is professional judgment. And so the answer to that is no, meaning while a member or credential designee can use the data provided, a member or credential designee must exercise professional judgment in determining which data is most relevant and how it should be weighted in the analysis. Each individual member and credential designee is responsible for analyzing the data and determining its appropriateness for the engagement. This includes the appropriateness of the agreed approaches, methods, and selected procedures, and the use of professional judgment. Obviously, in a calculation engagement, that involves the parties agreeing to certain approaches, typically, or methods. But I think what this is really talking about is that while even in a calculation engagement, the professional judgment and use of and weighting of any data used is the responsibility of the member and the credential designee. So I think it's very important to understand that while you can rely on information that is uncorroborated, it is the responsibility of the member or the credential designee to provide professional judgment and to actually understand the appropriateness of the agreed approaches, methods, and selected procedures. Moving on to another one of the highlighted FAQs. Can a member or credential designee delegate the responsibility of professional judgment to a client or anyone else? This really falls into kind of the same bucket that we just talked about. So the answer is no. Regardless of whether a staff or evaluation tool are utilized during the value development stage of estimating a value, the individual who signs the report is ultimately responsible for the adequacy of the procedures performed and the opinion rendered. A member or credential designee may not delegate the responsibility, judgment, selection, or implementation or assumptions or areas requiring professional judgment to anyone. So just going back and harping on what we talked about in the previous FAQ, while you may have information that is provided that is not corroborated, or if you're in a calculation engagement where you agree upon certain approaches or methods to be used, the actual application of those methods and the final either opinion or calculation of value, that is the responsibility, judgment, selection, or implementation of areas requiring professional judgment, which is basically the responsibility of the member or the credential designee. Moving forward, and I guess this still kind of elaborates on that FAQ number 3. This does include the selection of evaluation approaches, methods, and the extent of procedures performed. The member credential designee must maintain objectivity and professional integrity when performing valuation services. A member credential designee is responsible for exercising their own professional judgment to come to conclusions and cannot delegate this to their client or any other party. Again, this means a member credential designee cannot rely solely on a client to determine the appropriate methods or weighting of data. And I think the important thing there is solely. Again, in a calculation engagement, there may be a discussion, but there has to be input between the member credential designee and the client. And so I think we're getting close to time there. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and then pass it back over.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks for giving us kind of that lay of the land. I think it's important for us to stay up to speed on it and all. So, all right, now we're going to be moving into our final segment with James Ewart, and he's going to be talking with Michael Hill about protecting your business using E&O insurance and everything. So I see Michael and I see James on, and then we just need to bring the slides up and let you guys take it away. So good to have you here.
Very good. Thank you. So, Michael, you want to unmute yourself? Because I think you're muted right now. And while you're doing that, I'd like to welcome Michael to AVW. And Michael has over 30 years experience in the insurance industry, as 18 years as president of Freeburg Environmental Insurance and 12 years as a principal and Hill program managers. He's developed underwriting guidelines, policy forms, and rating systems for each of those companies. The programs have been prepared for and include environmental engineers, consultants, contractors, list goes on and on, plus business valuation and mergers and acquisitions consultants. And Michael specifically going to address that today. You know, the name of our segment is Grow and Build Your Brand. I'm thinking today it might be better served as protecting your base or protecting your brand, actually. So, Michael, welcome to AVW. Appreciate you being here. And maybe we could start today with a discussion of the various forms of insurance, the need for them, and some other. And I'd really like to discuss more, as we did the other day, the war stories surrounding what you're seeing in your practice. And because some of the things that you have brought up that you've been experiencing as the underwriter, I have not experienced those yet, and hopefully never will. But nonetheless, gave me reason to really pause. So welcome and thank you for that. And if you would, just talk about the need for and what's going on out there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Jim, could you tell me, are the slides working?
Yeah, if you all you need to do is roll forward, I believe.
Okay.
Do you have control of them on yours? That's you, right?
So can you see the slide? Can you see the slides, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't tell. All right. Yeah, so we are doing a professional liability insurance program through Lloyd's of London. Specifically for business brokers, business valuators, and mergers and acquisitions consultants. A lot of our people are also expert witness, forensic accountants, things like that. We're talking about transferring risk, and there's a few ways to do that. You can keep it for yourself, and people do that through a deductible. Maybe $1,000, $2,500, or they will not buy insurance at all and keep the entire risk. Another way to transfer the risk is through your engagement letter, transfer it to your client, back to your client, or limit it in some way, like a limitation of liability clause, or to buy insurance, which is obviously the way that we prefer that you do it. So the insurance carrier takes on the financial risk, and that provides you with much more financial strength than you would have on your own. And a couple of things that the insurance carrier is providing you with. They're providing you with legal counsel and the cost of that legal counsel to help you defend yourself once you're into a suit. And that's kind of important because the attorneys that we work with that handle this have been doing this for they've been doing it the entire 8 years that we've been doing the program, and they've become really expert at it. And I think that kind of vetted experience is very helpful to somebody when they're in a situation that litigation makes everybody uncomfortable. And then the other part of what the insurance does is they pay the indemnity. So if you are found liable, or say the insurance company and you decide that it's best to settle the claim, that amount of money would be paid by the insurance company. And when I say you have to decide too, professional liability policies provide that you have to agree to the settlement, or the carrier won't make it. There is an item in your policy called a hammer clause. So you should be aware of that if you decide not to go along with the settlement. The hammer clause provides that you may be responsible for all or a portion of what was paid out over and above what could have been paid out if you'd agreed to settle. So professional liability is the main piece that we sell. It's also known as malpractice or E&O, errors and omissions. It covers you against claims arising out of your errors or your omissions when you're providing professional services. And the policy, will define professional services. It will mention business valuation, it'll mention business brokering, and things like that. And you want to make sure that what you're doing is listed in the professional services. A lot of these programs will be what's known as a miscellaneous professional liability policy. So they're designed to cover not only you, but maybe beauty parlors and various other types of miscellaneous professionals. So the professional liability claims we've been seeing are, disputes about the values between maybe family members, maybe parties to a divorce, maybe bankruptcy. We're also seeing increased interest in tax settlements. We recently had a claim where all of the clients wound up getting audited by the IRS, and that wasn't popular. Nobody liked that at all. So that resulted in a claim against our insured. Then the things that we're seeing would be divorce, for one. I think Jim and I talked about this the other day. There's family disputes that lead to claims, bankruptcy, and then as far as business brokers go, dual agency has been a bit of a problem for us, where the business broker is representing both the buyer and the seller. But anytime that there's, I think, an underlying disagreement that we find in divorce or family disputes or bankruptcy, we have a potential for a claim. And anytime there's been a negative result, especially in litigation, we see more litigation as a result.
If I may interrupt just for a minute, the other day when we were talking, you had mentioned that the claims that related to divorce situations, you said was about half of the claims. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Did I get that right?
50% of the claims that we see arise out of a divorce. Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's a very that just I'm still taken back by the size,
I know you told me
the size of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you share at all the kinds of what's being asserted there, so that for the claim to be
Yeah, the most recent one we had, Jim, was a situation where the judge seemed to be siding with the wife or soon to be ex-wife, and in the valuation of a business, and it became pretty obvious to us as the claim went on that husband wasn't providing full and truthful information. So it may not have been the valuator's problem as much as the husband not being a good actor.
Okay, so it's a bad result, and the party's not happy with their expert.
Right. They weren't happy with the expert, and they were already in litigation, so more litigation followed.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So going on to another insurance coverage that's important is the commercial general liability. And a lot of our people, business valuators, small one-person shops where they're working remotely out of their home, choose not to buy commercial general liability. We always recommend that it be purchased. It's generally slips and falls and things like that, people coming to your property. We did have an interesting claim where a valuator was doing a project that involved an airplane, and the owner of the airplane alleged that it had been damaged during the valuation, which was primarily opening and closing doors and hatches and not getting them secured correctly. And they alleged that the airplane had been damaged. So that's the type of thing that would be picked up by your commercial general liability policy, as opposed to your professional liability policy. Another important coverage for this class of business is the cyber insurance. We've seen a marked uptick in take-up or purchase of cyber liability insurance. The types of risks or types of occurrences we see there are when malware gets put onto a computer, phishing attacks, which can be an email that contains some kind of a malicious download or PDF, data breaches where personally identifiable material is taken, that would be especially in a medical office or a dental office or something like that, where there are social security numbers and things like that. And then, of course, there's social engineering, which is becoming more and more widespread. Basically, a bad actor will talk somebody into doing something, like they will talk somebody into changing the routing number and the account number that a payment is going to be made to. We had a claim like that where an earnout payment, rather large earnout payment, was going to be sent, and a bad actor called in and asked for the routing number and the account number to be changed, and the person that could do it did it. And so I think it was about $6 million was transferred. So these things can be pretty expensive. The benefits of cyber coverage, the cyber, in order to provide cyber coverage now, you have to be more than just the insurance. So you're able to help with risk management. You're able to help with crisis management. You provide help with the litigation and the forensics. And some of the carriers will provide cybersecurity coaches. And then if there's a breach, there are a lot of tools that these guys can bring to the table and help recover money and help unlock ransomware, things like that. I think I breezed through it pretty quick there, Jim.
Yeah, you did. Thank you, Mark. I got one quick. I think we've just got about a minute left, though. I guess one's a question, one's a comment. So I have one biggie for me is that cyber coverage, and I don't think we can at least from my personal preference is, I don't think I can overestimate that in protecting client data, protecting client information. And then the other thing that given the discussion we heard about the Daubert challenges and what I'm layering in based on the claims that you are processing or being your companies or your insurance carriers are being addressing with respect to your insureds. It seems to me that there could be increased activity in that area as a result of, if we haven't done what documented our files as to exactly what we're doing, the information we're relying on, why we're relying on it, all of those things that we've addressed today.
Exactly.
in today's sessions. I think all dovetail and center around this. Let's protect our brand. And Michael, thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Michael.
Well,
thank you,
for having
James.
us.
This is truly important. So thank you everyone for being here as we close out this month's program for AVW. We will see you back here with another packed agenda on September 15th, 2025. If you want to be a guest on the webcast, reach out to Chinda at headquarters. If you have questions about your continuing ed, reach out to headquarters on that, and we'll see you back here on September 15th. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Alina, for being here too.